How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm great, Gary. I am still recovering from that game last week and watching Alabama beat Ole Miss. My nerves are still a little shot, but I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well. I think everybody is. And before we look ahead to this weekend, let's get some thoughts from you on that game. It was a crazy game, obviously, in the second quarter when Alabama went down 24-3. Late in that second quarter, it did not look good, but then you turn around and just a couple minutes later, it was 24-17 and game was on.
It was on, and you know what? Alabama, say what you will, Alabama beat a really, really good team on the road. And, you know, I really thought that with Ole Miss not being able to run the ball, that this game, you know, Alabama would really be able to put Ole Miss away. But I got to hand it to Chad Kelly and, you know, Ole Miss's receivers. I really thought without Laquan Treadwell this year that, you know, the Ole Miss offense would look different. They've just found more really big wide receivers to throw to and nearly cost Alabama the game. But you know what? They beat a really good team on the road. And I got to tell you, for Ole Miss, I don't know who scheduled their season this year, but it clearly wasn't the scheduling gods from Iowa and Florida. I mean, you play Florida State, Alabama, Georgia. I mean, Ole Miss has got to be really, really beat up, which I think, you know, we're just going to see that more and more as the season goes on. So it doesn't look good for them as the season goes on. But, you know, hats off to Alabama for a big win on the road.
I agree with you. Huge win and a big sigh of relief, collective sigh of relief out of the state of Alabama when that game was over. And we're not going to spend any time on Alabama and Kent State because clearly Alabama's a huge favorite there and expected to win that game rather easily. But there are some other really sizzling matchups coming up in the SEC this weekend that I want to get your opinion on. And let's begin, of course, with Auburn at home against LSU. You've been a pretty strong advocate for Auburn. You feel like they're a good football team, yet they're 1-2. They're 0-1 in the SEC, and I wouldn't call it a must-win, but at the same time, that's a game they really need on Saturday night against LSU, and LSU's kind of in the same boat. The loser of this game is going to have a lot of negative feedback coming their way, but it's an interesting matchup at 5 o'clock Saturday at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
And you know what? It's funny because I never thought that talking about this game that we would be talking about the 2014 Purdue Boilermakers when talking about this game. But I found a crazy stat that I think holds the key to this game and another game in the SEC this week. But can you believe that the 2014 Purdue Boilermakers went 3-9 overall, 1-7 in the Big Ten, and one of their quarterbacks is going to be starting for LSU against Auburn this weekend? I mean, that's insane to me. And yeah, you're right. I have been completely loyal to Auburn this season, and it really is because of their top 10 recruiting classes the past 4 years in a row. But, man, they just continue to disappoint me. And I think at some point this season, the defense may just quit on Malzahn, but I don't think they quit this weekend. I really think that Auburn's defense has something to prove against LSU. You know, they were embarrassed by LSU last year. And I think there's no doubt they're going to load the line of scrimmage to stop Leonard Fournette, and they're going to force Danny Etling to beat them in the air. But Danny Etling isn't Trevor Knight. He certainly isn't Deshaun Watson. And I think Auburn has the edge in this game. But like I said, Danny Etling, he wasn't even the number one quarterback on the Purdue team that we're talking about that went 1-7 in the Big Ten. I think LSU has hit the panic button. And I think they're turning to a guy who really isn't their best option at quarterback, which just tells me how uncomfortable Les Miles is. I mean, this game is going to be a battle of the bad offenses. I mean, I like Auburn to get the win this weekend, but, I mean, granted, I realize Auburn is 3-12 in their last 15 games against Power 5 conference schools. You know, I think one of the differences between these two teams as well is that LSU came into this season hoping for a national championship. Auburn really didn't have any high expectations this season. And I do think they have the talent to pull out the win on Saturday, but it's going to be a battle of the bad offenses for sure.
Visiting with Elizabeth Grant from 3yardsinthecloud.com. You can go there every week and get her money in your pocket picks. Also, you can follow her on Twitter at Elizabeth3YITC. Okay, let's keep it in the West, and we're going to get, obviously, to the East Division matchup with Florida and Tennessee here in a moment. But let's stay right now in the West Division for a game that is huge. I mean, the winner of this game between Arkansas and Texas A&M is going to have, big plans on winning the SEC West. And you got two unbeaten teams, two teams that have navigated through a schedule so far to get to this point. And this is a huge matchup. How do you break this one down?
Well, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Gary. You said it. I think the winner of this game is going to be the team that challenges Alabama for the SEC West. I mean, I'm surprised that we're saying that, but I agree with you. I do have to give the edge to the Aggies in this one, strictly because I think they have the better chance to run the ball. A&M, they rushed for over 200 yards against UCLA, and I think Trevor Knight gives them that extra threat to beat Arkansas with his legs. When you look at the game in which Arkansas played TCU, which was a great win for Arkansas, but they gave up over 90 yards rushing to Kenny Hill. So I think with the home field, the 12th man, Trevor Knight, I like Aggies to pull out the win. One thing, too, is Austin Allen, he was sacked 3 times against Louisiana Tech, and they only won that game by 1 point. In Texas A&M, they had 5 sacks against UCLA. They had 4 against Auburn, and I just think Myles Garrett is going to have a big game and really force Allen into making some critical mistakes, so the Aggies can pull out the win against Arkansas. But this game, I'm really excited to watch on Saturday.
I am too. Going to be a very entertaining football game. All right, in the East, it is a game that has a lot of hype. Florida, 11 wins in a row over Tennessee, and the Gator players this week not shy about expressing their confidence that they're going to make it 12 in a row in Knoxville. This is the second half of the Purdue quarterback story with Appleby getting the start for Florida. It is in Knoxville. Tennessee has, other than their game against Virginia Tech, has been pretty underwhelming. Florida has a terrific defense, but again, Luke Del Rio, their normal starter, will not be the quarterback. Austin Appleby takes over. This is going to have a lot of emotion, a lot of intensity, 2:30 on Saturday afternoon in Knoxville, Tennessee at Neyland Stadium.
Oh, yeah, and you know what? With or without Luke Del Rio, I was all over the balls this weekend for this game. I love the balls to beat Florida. I think Florida is the most overrated team in the country this year.
Wow.
And in case you guys have forgotten, I did pick them to win the East last year, and everybody laughed at me. But this year, they've lost too many players to the draft. They had too many injuries. And even with Luke Del Rio, Florida is overrated. And really, their first 3 games this year, what have they proved? They proved absolutely nothing. They played Massachusetts. They played Kentucky. They played North Texas. I mean, Florida was clinging to a 10-7 lead in the fourth quarter against UMass, which is a team that Mississippi State is favored to beat by 22 on the road this week. I mean, I just think they're so overrated that even with Butch Jones calling the shots for the Vols, that Tennessee won't lose this week. I think the only way that Florida wins this game is if the Vols turn the ball over more than 3 times, which is possible. I mean, the Vols have fumbled the ball 8 times in 3 games so far this season, but I think that's the only way for Florida to get this, get the win this week. And you're right. I mean, the starting Purdue quarterback. I mean, I just can't even believe we're saying that. But look, Austin Appleby is not named Drew Brees. And I really don't believe that Florida has a shot at all to beat Tennessee this week.
Strong words from Elizabeth Grant. Not just picking Tennessee, but picking Tennessee without any hesitation at all. A team that's lost 11 in a row to Florida, but you definitely feel strongly that that's coming to an end on Saturday. Hey, Elizabeth.
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do feel strongly about this, but remember last week when I didn't feel so strong about my Georgia pick against Mizzou, I knew that would come back and bite me in the rear end, and it did. Missouri covered the spread and then lost in a heartbreaking loss at the end there. So I feel like I'm going to beg Mizzou to take me back, even though I betrayed them. I still like them to even battle it out in the East this year. Clearly nobody in the East has shown that they are the clear best team in the East. So it's still a battle over there.
Yeah, Missouri should have won that game, in fact. All
Absolutely.
right. So many different places to follow you. I mentioned the website, your Twitter handle. You've got a separate Twitter handle for 3 Yards in the Cloud. Just go ahead and let the folks know the different ways they can keep up with all of your great insight, analysis, and your money in your pocket picks.
Thank you, Gary. You can first go to my website, the number 3yardsinthecloud.com. You can subscribe. You can get our weekly newsletter. We do have some great articles on there, and I do my Money in Your Pocket picks on video that I do once a week. You can follow me on Facebook.com/3yardsinthecloud or on Twitter, Elizabeth3YITC, and I'm on with you, Gary, every Thursday morning, and I certainly enjoy it.
Well, I do too, and it's a pleasure to have you. Great insight and analysis, and of course, next week we'll get back on Alabama as they'll host Kentucky in an SEC game at Bryant-Denny Stadium next Saturday night. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Gary. You guys take care.